screen starts glowing, and the film starts rolling. You wanna be knowing what you might be in for. So give the show a listen and find out what you're missing. Put yourself in position for the in-ticket score.
Rudy, 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 Rudy.
It's now becoming clear what the crowd is cheering. They're shouting Rudy.
Hey, listeners, welcome to the 213th episode of The Goods, a film podcast. This is Dan, and I have Brian here with me. How we doing, Brian?
Happy birthday, Dan.
Thanks, Brian. The old 37, prime number. What's the next prime number after 37? Is it 43? 41? 41 maybe?
Is it 41? Or is 41 divisible by 7 or something? No, I think it's 41.
List of prime numbers. Yes. 41. And then 43. So we have a tradition on The Goods of, in honor of a host's birthday, discussing a movie of the birthday boys choosing. I guess we do that every week, but in particular, it's supposed to be something that captures the essence of a birthday in one way or another, or perhaps just the essence of the person who brought it to the table. And I selected the 1993 film Rudy for a number of reasons. Brian, is this your second time seeing Rudy?
Right. So back, I don't know, like 2014 or 2015, I guess it was 2014, Dan wrote a series of articles on his blog that were kind of a response to my 100 Film Favorites blog series. And Dan expanded it to cover other forms of media. And it was a grab bag. It was the top 100 everything, but like 20 of them. One of the like wedges on the Trivial Pursuit cheese wheel was movies. And so there were several of these articles that were about movies. One of them was Rudy. And as I was reading along, if I hadn't consumed the thing before, I generally tried to track it down. So I read some books, I listened to some albums, and I watched Rudy. That was the first time. And then actually, Dan, because I knew that a lot of things in this story resonated with you, connected with you and your family. I know that your family has a tradition of connection with Notre Dame, that when your dad passed away, we actually watched this film.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's thoughtful.
So this is the third time then that we've watched it.
Okay.
And I trust that you've seen it more than that.
For sure. Many times. Probably not the most I've seen a movie that we've discussed on The Goods, but probably top 5. I think I've seen a Goofy movie more. I've definitely seen That Thing You Do more. Probably seen Toy Story 1 more. But not too many of them.
Not to derail things too completely, but now you got me thinking prime numbers. Do prime numbers matter? Do they mean anything other than just as a curiosity? Like, can you do anything with prime numbers?
So that is actually a terrific question. And the answer is yes, they do. They have a lot of interesting properties, but practically speaking, what makes them most important these days is they're very important for cryptography. So basically, whenever you pass something across the internet, we have the technology called SSL that basically is a way of using prime numbers to scramble and then unscramble something in such a way that if anyone else got their hands on the data, it would take them like as many molecules as there are in the universe to fully decrypt. So they do matter. But yeah, it's a good question. And that is a tangent.
That's pretty interesting. I'm glad we got to talk about that. You know, you got to pull at threads when you're doing 213 episodes and you want it to be different every time. So,
well,
I knew we hadn't talked prime numbers
Well, on
yet.
the note of our long-running podcast, Brian, what are some of our birthday episodes? We'll just real quickly go through them. So this is, I think, my 5th birthday episode.
Right, so I think we've each had 5.
Why don't you say yours, and I think I know all of mine. So you say yours, and then I'll say mine.
All right. Yeah, the Rock-afire documentary, then the Spy Kids, like, whole franchise. We talked UHF.
Did we do Feeders and something else?
Oh, that's right. Feeders in Henry's Kitchen was one of them. And then the very most recent, what did we do? Oh, it was times that I went to the movie theater on my birthday. And we, like, revisited things like Beowulf.
Right. And then for me, I think my first pick was The Iron Giant. And then Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And then I think... So one of them for sure was That Thing You Do. I think the last one, did I bring... was it my birthday that we discussed Train Spotting? I can't remember.
So I think actually you did like 2 in a row that year that were associated with your birthday.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Because we did the Toy Story was the other one. Toy Story 1 through 4.
Right. Yes. I actually listened back to the Train Spotting episode recently.
But yes, 5 birthdays. Lots of momentous movies. Distinctly us movies. So let's talk about why the 1993 movie Rudy is important to me. So this movie is a biopic of sorts. It's the story of the quest of a real person, Daniel Rudiger, known as Rudy. And it depicts his dream to play on the University of Notre Dame football team. In, I believe it was the 70s that he actually was undergoing what was most of what is depicted in this film. So why is Rudy important to me? Well, it was my first favorite movie. So the very first time that I ever had an opinion and I could tell you what my favorite movie was, Rudy would have been the answer. And it probably stayed my favorite for up until I was 20-something, around 20. Eventually, it got shifted a little bit, and That Thing You Do went on the top. And I would probably still have it, That Thing You Do at the top. Although there's more and more that I just feel inordinate affection for. It's kind of like a top 5 logjam. But Rudy, the reasons that it really called to me when I was young. So first is, as Brian mentioned, I have a long family history with the University of Notre Dame. So there's a couple things to know about Notre Dame. First of all, it's a Catholic university, and I grew up Catholic. But it's not just a Catholic university. It's like the American Catholic university. Of course, there are others too. But it's the highest profile, one of, if not the best academically. It's in Indiana, South Bend, Indiana. It's also the one that its sports teams, in particular its football team, became very famous and became kind of culturally de facto what Catholics rooted for. Like that was one of the football teams, particularly if you're Catholic, you rooted for Notre Dame and Notre Dame football. And they were very, very great. Basically, since college football has been a thing, they've been great. They've had up times and down times, of course. But they developed a lot of mythology because they were very, very good early in the history of football. So there's a lot of legendary figures in Notre Dame football history. Probably the 2 most famous who are tied together. One is Knute Rockne. He was a head football coach in, like the 30s or 40s or something like that. And he was very, very good. He won multiple national titles. If you ever see the list of the greatest coaches ever, you will often see him listed there. He had a very high win percentage. And he did stuff like some people say he invented the forward pass. It's not quite right, but he did. He was innovative. He kind of changed the face of football and modernized it a little bit. Also, he's like a romantic, tragic figure because he died in a plane crash while he was coach. And so, that's kind of like a tragic story. Someone at the top of the game, already sort of a folk hero and genius, and then he dies in a plane crash while he's kind of at his peak powers. That's Newt Rockne.
And is that who the Gipper is?
No. So that's the other figure. So Gipper, but he's connected. I think he coached the Gipper. So the Gipper, George Gipp, he either was played by Ronald Reagan or someone else in that movie was played by Ronald Reagan. One of his biggest roles.
Okay. I knew Reagan featured into the story somewhere.
So they made a movie about Newt Rockne and George Gipp called Newt Rockne All-American. So George Gipp is kind of a very famous figure from that. I think Reagan played Gipp. I haven't actually seen that movie, believe it or not. Like that's, you know what, now that I'm saying that, that's going to shoot up to near the top of my watch list just because it feels like, can I really call myself a Notre Dame football fan, an ex-Notre Dame football fan? Not to say I don't like them anymore. I just don't follow them as closely as I used to. But can I really call myself that if I haven't seen Newt Rockne All-American? Or I might have seen most of it or like had it on TV, but haven't watched it in my adult life, let's say. So, yeah.
I just remember there was like circa 2010, there was a viral video on YouTube where it was a supercut of inspirational speech scenes from movies. And one of the snippets in the speech was, "And win just one for the Gipper."
Right. So George Gipp was, I just looked it up. It is Reagan who played Gipp. So he was a football player and he got really sick and ended up dying while he was a senior at Notre Dame football. And Newt Rockne says that he visited him on his deathbed, and the George Gipp said, "When the breaks are beating the boys, tell them to go out there with all they've got and win just one for the Gipper." And so this became like one of the de facto inspirational speeches, as he said. Go out there with all you got and win just one for the Gipper. Win one for the Gipper. I think Reagan might have even adopted that as his presidential slogan one year or something like that, because he played Gipp. But of course, that's Newt Rockne saying that's what George Gipp told him. There's been much speculation that this might have been a Newt Rockne fabrication to motivate his team to come up with that story, or at least enrich the story a little bit. But that's how it goes. That's how the movie goes. That's how the legend goes. And he did that speech at halftime, and they came back and they ended up winning the game where he gave that speech. So that was another thing about Newt Rockne is like you kind of don't hear about this talked about in the same way in football, but like there was sort of like a romanticization of the halftime speech, of like the motivational qualities of a coach. Like now a football coach is almost more of like a CEO. Like they're not a military general in the same way or something like that. It's like, I don't know. The way that we view it has changed a little bit.
Yeah, that video also had some battlefield speeches. It had "Gentlemen of England, now abed," from the Battle of Agincourt in Henry V. It had, is it Paxton or Pullman in Independence Day, Dan?
It is Pullman in Independence Day.
Okay, well, it had him.
Yeah, gotcha. So for me, being a Notre Dame football fan was a really big part of my identity. Like one of the top 2 or 3 things that, like, if you were to say, what are you into, Dan? Like, what do your interests lie? Where do they lie? How do you like to spend your time? And where do your thoughts go in idle moments? The answer would have been like Notre Dame football, pretty much near the top. Really the only thing that competed with it was Billy Joel music at the time. And in fact, my first username for AIM, and then I used it for Gmail, and I've used it for a bunch of things, was Billy Joel Notre Dame, as kind of representative of my peak interests at the time.
Did you apply to Notre Dame?
Good question. This is important too. I did apply to Notre Dame, and I got into Notre Dame. And I wanted to go to Notre Dame, but we've kind of talked about this. I don't know how directly we've talked about this. I'm sure that we have at some point. I've mentioned I had a really terrific senior year of high school. Like I really kind of found my groove then. And I got my first girlfriend. I made a whole lot of friends. Life was good. I didn't really want to leave home. I wasn't excited about the prospect. And so I was drawn to in-state schools. I kind of felt like it wouldn't be good for me at that time to go to Notre Dame. I do kind of regret that, though. I think, I don't know, given how important it was to me, even when I go there still, I feel like a sort of, I don't know what you call it, like a nostalgia is not quite right because I didn't actually go there, but like a phantom nostalgia, like of missed potential of what could have been, the one that got away, except instead of a person, it's a university I didn't go to, you know? Because I do think when you go there, there's a certain magic to it. And that's part of the draw of Notre Dame is like, they say that the people who love Notre Dame feel a magic being drawn to it.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty interesting. I didn't know the full picture, but that with the pieces that I had, I guess that is probably what I would have put together. I think you had an understanding of what your life could be, the trajectory that you saw that I think has come together in certain ways.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I say that, I'm not like living a life of regret. The path led me to a life where I am extremely blessed with pretty much everything in my life. I have a family, a wife that I love, a house and neighborhood that I love, lots of friends, a job that I love. So like, it's not like there's something that Notre Dame would have given me that I didn't get at another school, at the school I ended up graduating from, which was the University of Virginia. But it's still a what if in my life.
Yeah. And I think some people in your family did go there. Is that correct?
Yes. So that was kind of the origin of it, is my parents went there and they met there. So my dad, as you mentioned, my dad passed away a couple years ago. We talked about it on the pod some when it happened. My dad went to Notre Dame, and he, kind of an interesting story for him. He might not have actually been able to go there. He might have, it's hard to say. So he was valedictorian at his high school, McLean High School.
In Virginia?
Yes.
Wow.
So he got into Notre Dame. Now, his best friend when he was a kid passed away in an accident when they were around the 10 years old. I don't know exactly the age. And as a result, his friend's father, a close family friend, offered to pay for my dad's first year of college wherever he wanted to go as a tribute to the boy who passed away, my dad's friend and that man's son. As kind of like, we would be paying for him to go to college, but we'll do it for my dad, who was his best friend. And so, Notre Dame's a private university, unlike the Virginia in-state schools. Not obviously there are private schools in Virginia, but schools. And Notre Dame is kind of notoriously expensive too. Usually like on the upper end of private schools. So would he have gone there? Probably still. I don't know. But that kind of made it easier for him to decide to go. And then my mom grew up in Long Island, New York, and she also decided to go to Notre Dame. She was salutatorian, which is the runner-up valedictorian at her high school. And one of the things about Notre Dame is they don't do frats or sororities, but they encourage you to live on campus all 4 years. You're not required to, but they encourage you to. And in some ways, your dorm becomes like a frat or a sorority. You kind of do things together. You have traditions together. It's different because you don't like choose one to quote unquote rush, but it kind of becomes your like family at college. So my dad met my mom through mutual friends. So it's Notre Dame was for many, many years a boys only school. And I think to this day, they split the boys and the girls dorms. But yes, my parents went there, met there. They started dating, I think, their senior year of high school. And then they got married a few years later. And then I did not go there, but I'm the oldest of 6. Sibling number 3, if I'm number 1, number 3, whose name is Brad, went to Notre Dame. Great guy, Brad. You know what? He'd be an interesting guy to have on the pod sometime, because he's a teacher now. He's very gregarious and very articulate and very intellectually curious. And I think he's kind of got a little bit more of a boisterous personality than me or Will, who my other brother who has appeared on the pod.
And he is also a one-time seminarian. Is that correct?
Yes. So his time in Notre Dame, he felt deeply more into his Catholic faith. And for a while, he was in seminary to become a Catholic priest. And even before then, when he was kind of discerning his future path, he did a lot of traveling to places where group Catholic communities, whether it was where a bunch of priests lived or just like small Catholic communities, and he would stay with someone. So he went to a few places. He did some work in and around Notre Dame. He actually spent a lot of time in Chile, the country. And then he enrolled in seminary, and he spent a couple years in seminary and then decided that his calling was to raise a family in the Catholic faith. So some people, when they leave seminary, it's because they become disillusioned with the faith. That was not the case with Brad. Brad is still just as devout a Catholic as he was when he entered seminary. But now he is married, and he has a daughter who I have not met, and I will be meeting this summer. We're going to take a trip to Indiana. So he lives in Indianapolis now. So that's my first sibling who went there. And then my youngest sibling, who is in fact my only sister, she attends Notre Dame right now.
So I wanted to say a couple things in response to that, to kind of explain where my head was at in this watch of this film, is that neither of my parents graduated from college. They both went into the military. And so I think they very much have the mindset, which is kind of shown in this movie, that there was a stretch of time that kind of matches, I guess, like the second half of the 20th century, maybe, where the idea that most people should go to college is like the American dream. Like that was something that kind of emerged and then really, I think, came to its cusp, its peak with us, Dan. That it's like, early 21st century that, oh yeah, everybody goes to college. Like that's the thing. That's everybody is expected to at least do undergrad. Like most jobs expected to do that. But for, early days of the country's history, that wasn't the case. And I think in some regards, maybe the bubble is bursting these days. There are arguments either way. But as far as like, not every major, leads to a secure job path. And what trajectories most necessitate a college degree?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of discourse about that. I think that's a great point, because that's kind of a very strong current in this film, is that Rudy, the character, his dream is to go to college, but he comes up from a blue-collar family in the Rust Belt, kind of lower middle class, works at a factory, and none of his siblings had gone to college. His parents hadn't gone to college. They were a factory family. And that's like, nowadays we would consider that like a failure of the American dream to some extent. Like, these people didn't go to college. So
yeah, it's just that kind of the American dream was that the children will be more upwardly mobile than the parents.
Sure. That's a good way of saying it.
It's that the parents, they work hard, they make the money, and then they have the kid go to college. And that was like, I think that was the mindset that my parents had, was that, we'll work hard and we'll enable our children to go through college, and then they will be assured like a secure, stable, successful life.
And I think you're right that there's been some discourse about, is that still what we should be pushing people to go to college? Basically, that's like a metric for a successful education and a path to a remunerative and promising career. And I actually read an article about this not too long ago, and the answer is still pretty much yes for pretty much any major. It's like, even the majors, like, I don't know, you'll sometimes hear, oh, wow, a philosophy degree. How would that ever get you a job? Oh, American Studies. How will that get you a job? What's your study, Brian?
American Studies was one of them. Yeah, film, the slightly more hands-on major, slightly more doing things.
But the numbers still say you're much more likely to get a career if you go to college than if you don't, which is not to say you need college to get a career, but even like the ones that have the lowest placement ratio, it's still something like 70% of graduates have a career within 5 years of graduating or something like that, which, you know, it's A, it's not a guarantee, and B, it doesn't mean you're a failure or you did something wrong if you don't get the job or something like that, you know?
Right. But, you know, I also think about, well, who makes the movies? It's people who like writing, it's people who like music, and it's like the stories they tell, they celebrate musicians, they celebrate, well, maybe athletes. Few movies are celebrating the foundry worker. It's like, that's not what people aspire to, except that, like, the economy requires people to do those jobs still. It's like the country functions because people are making things and building things, and yeah, I don't know. It's complicated. There's a lot. We just talked, or the episode that just rolled out on the feed was American Movie about the Rust Belt. And, you know, I don't know. It's like there's always going to be a need for engineers, for instance, and engineers got to have degrees, and doctors. It's like to have physician abilities. I don't know. It's really complicated. There are many angles to all of these things. And I know that you really love this movie. I also like this movie. So let's focus on the movie for now, but my head was just in a lot of places watching it this time.
Well, something you said there, Brian, is something that was in my head as well. I mean, I was thinking about some of those things, and honestly, like, it's in the headline news every day, you know? You can't escape some of that discourse. Who's going to be doing the jobs, the menial jobs? What's the glory in that? Who should be doing that? Etc. Will AI be doing those things for us? Will AI be doing the things that people who go to college used to be doing? You know, all sorts of stuff like that. So it's a good point that this, I mean, what is it that Andrew Milne Thrash, I don't know if he said it on the pod or if he just said it in the Discord, but all art is political. Like, there's no such thing as apolitical art. And I think you're right that this hits on some themes that you're still seeing in headline news. But one thing you said that really, really struck me is the connections to American Movie. This, to me, is the anti-American movie in many, many ways. And I want to talk about that. Just to remind you, listeners, American Movie, we spent a lot of time philosophizing in that episode. That was an interesting one. And I encourage listeners to go check out our American Movie episode. But the gist of it is it's a documentary about a independent filmmaker who struggles to bring his vision of a film called Northwestern to life. And in the process of doing that, makes a short film called Coven. And it spends a lot of time opining on what is the nature of dreaming, what does it mean to have an American dream, both directly and indirectly, reflecting upon that. And one consensus that Brian and I had coming out of it is that it was a depressing watch. It did not make us feel like inspired to go out and pursue dreams.
Right. Not inspirational. Rudy it's fine-tuned. It's a well-made instrument to inspire.
Completely.
Like Rudy himself, the real dude, Rudiger, his career is motivational speaker. That's what he did after the events of this story. He got carried off the field and immediately started motivational speaker seminars.
So let's talk about the making of it, because that's a good transition. So the real life Rudy, Daniel Rudiger, played by Sean Astin in the film. I've met a handful of people who have met him. I've never met him. The sense that you get from people who have met him is that he is annoying and he pushes himself, which honestly, you get some of that in this movie. There are times when Rudy's like drive, I think it does just the right amount of like, this is kind of obnoxious. Even if it's admirable, it is kind of obnoxious to like single-mindedly assume you are going to achieve your goal and pursue it so relentlessly, and to kind of lack awareness of the unlikelihood of you achieving that and the imposition of you trying to achieve that on other people.
Yeah, what does Seth MacFarlane say? He insists upon himself.
Yeah. So you're right that he basically became a motivational speaker, and he himself was pushing for many years to make this movie. He was a driving force in getting this movie made. So I don't know if that like sours the movie at all. Like to remember that like the flip side of being motivated is that you kind of need to self-brand yourself, you know, to like to achieve these things. And maybe, I don't know, we can think about like how is Rudy different from, what's the name of the guy in American Movie?
Mark Borchardt. I was also thinking a little bit about Tommy Wiseau, Ed Wood, a couple other driven underdogs we've talked about.
But as said, Rudy makes you feel good about it. It doesn't make you feel depressed about it. And I want to dig into why that is. And so this movie is directed by David Anspaugh. I think that's how you say it. It's kind of funny when you read stuff, you don't always hear the way that things are pronounced. We've talked about that before. So like, I don't know, there's probably words I've been saying wrong a whole bunch on the pod. Sometimes Gavin calls us out on them. But anyways, David Anspaugh, I think is his name. Anspaughh.
Yeah, I just watched a movie from John Huston, not Huston, as we said on his first appearance on the podcast. Yeah, it was The Man Who Would Be King. I liked it quite a bit. It may come up as an episode before too long.
But anyways, Anspaugh is not a particularly notable director. Like, he doesn't have a whole bunch of classics, or I don't even know if he has any Academy Award nominations. But his two most famous movies are both sports underdog films, Hoosiers and Rudy. So I saw Rudy a lot as a kid, and people really hyped up Hoosiers. So Hoosiers is about an Indiana high school basketball team that is an underdog as well. When I finally watched Hoosiers, it had been overhyped for me, and I felt underwhelmed. But I will say I need to revisit it to give it another chance. Because sometimes the way things go is I'll come in with really high expectations, be a little underwhelmed, and then second time be like, okay, you know what? It's fine. It's good. And that might be what happens this time if I ever go back and watch Hoosiers.
Hoosiers are people who live in Indiana, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know if you ever saw the sitcom The Middle, but it's about a family that lives in Indiana, and the dad has a t-shirt that says Hoosier Daddy. And I thought that kind of like perfectly encapsulated the promise of the premise right there.
Also notable connection to Hoosiers is the music is by Jerry Goldsmith. So one thing that has kind of crystallized for me as I've grown up and watched more movies and watched Rudy more times is that Rudy has a very special soundtrack. In fact, I would probably put it up there among my all-time favorite scores. And again, it's by Jerry Goldsmith. I've heard Jerry Goldsmith called your favorite composer's favorite composer. So he's not the most famous, but he does have an excellent reputation. I think he's known for being underrated, I guess. So, Brian, you remember we had Zev Burrows on the show for the Disney Song Draft episode?
Yes.
He lives in Manhattan. He's a professional screen composer of scores. And I reached out to him before this episode because I remember him saying something good about Jerry Goldsmith before. And I was like, how do you feel about the Rudy score and how do you feel about Jerry Goldsmith? And here's what he said. He said, oh man, it's one of my absolute favorite Jerry Goldsmith scores. Obviously, he had a slam dunk with Anspaugh on Hoosiers, pun intended. And he was reportedly looking for another movie like it to score. Rudy ended up as their next collaboration, and one can tell that Jerry just fell in love with the movie. It's absolutely shameless Americana, a la Aaron Copland, but I'm a sucker for the style, and Copland is one of my favorite composers. I feel like when Jerry wrote in a similar style, it always came from a very earnest place. Rudy is probably my favorite example of it. Gorgeous melody writing, obviously, and it really does feel honest and emotionally stirring. And the most famous bits of it were used in so many trailers and are heavily iconic.
That's what I was going to say is this is the trailer music piece. It's like ba 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 dun 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 Da, 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 da. Yeah.
He gave 2 examples of trailers that used it. So the Angels in the Outfield trailer from 1994, which was apparently on the VHS release of The Lion King. So a lot of people watched it a whole bunch of times from our generation, has the Rudy score in it. The one that I remembered was, I think, on the Shrek VHS. It was for Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron. And it's kind of this, actually, it's a pretty cool trailer. It's like follows this eagle soaring over this canyon. And then we zoom down into this running horse in animation. And that has the tryouts music from the tryouts in Rudy.
Actually, now that you say that, I remember at King's Dominion, they had like a light show that would play at night. And it played that music. And I thought, oh, that's the Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron music.
Almost. You got halfway there.
There are a lot of people on social media who find the Stallion of the Cimarron attractive.
That is weird. I don't like that.
The internet is a strange place. People know too much about each other these days.
I agree. Yeah, that sounds right. So thanks, Zev, for sharing your thoughts on Jerry Goldsmith. It adds some weight to this idea that the Rudy score is great when we hear a professional composer agree with me on that. Because you don't often see Rudy listed among like the greatest scores of all time. But for me, it's just both personally iconic, but it's one I can just put on, hit play, and listen to. So probably one of the 5 or so I've listened to most often. But yeah, I don't know. Any other Rudy thoughts before we dive in? I guess the one last caveat that I would put is I think there's a barrier to entry on Rudy, which is that you need to, if not buy into, at least accept the, how do you say the word? Hagiography.
Oh, gosh. I think hagiography.
Yeah.
But that is one we could ask Gavin about, because that's how you write about saint, right? Isn't that what hagiography is?
Yeah. All right. I'm going to see pronunciation. Okay. Google says it's hagiography, not hagiography. Hagiography. So yeah, that's writing about saints, telling the story of saints. And that's the word that popped into my head watching this, because you need to kind of buy the magic, the divine calling of Notre Dame, like the university, the football team. If you don't get it at least a little bit, then you're going to be like, this is the stupidest movie I've ever seen. Why does he care that much?
I want to talk a little bit about that. What I was thinking this time was when I watch Amadeus, which is probably one of the most name-dropped movies on the podcast so far that hasn't gotten its own episode. But in that one, you have to feel the divine pull of opera and like understand that opera is really great. And that's a little bit of a barrier, even to me to this day. It's like, I don't know that I love opera that much. I don't know that I love football this much. But it's like, if you can understand what the character sees in it and what they're feeling, that's the mark of success. And I think Amadeus definitely gets there. And this one, I think, gets there for me, too.
I agree. I think, well, I'm biased because I kind of have always felt that way about Notre Dame, but I feel like even if you don't, you at least get it. You at least like understand it. So I guess we can dive in. And part of that is from the beginning. We kind of see him as a kid and he watches Notre Dame football on the TV with his dad. He's loved Notre Dame from the start, but he seems like drawn to it on TV as like this thing that unites people. He plays football with his brothers and his friends, and we kind of see him growing up. We see played at various life stages. I only realized this time, I don't think I've ever noticed it before, that there's actually like not just one child actor, but we see like 3 different child actors playing Rudy before he becomes Sean Astin as an 18-year-old.
Rudy, the real Rudy, was one of 14 children. it had me thinking of the Monty Python sketch with the Catholic family, that it's just endless children coming out of cabinets in the kitchen.
It is kind of a stereotype. the Catholic family that just the kids just keep coming. You know, I will say people made those jokes about us too when we were. It's less common to find families with even 6 kids these days, and I'm the oldest of 6. So yeah. After seeing him as a kid, so his dad is played by Ned Beatty. Great actor, great performance here. I really like Ned Beatty as the dad. He has a scene that you're right. This is like a machine to get you to like almost. You could almost call it like inspiration porn, sort of. It's like maximized to make you feel the odds against Rudy. I think a lot of the people who kind of discourage Rudy come across as cartoonishly negative. In particular, there's like a priest teacher who is like, Rudy's like, well, I want to go to Notre Dame someday. Can I go on the university tour? And like the priest teacher at this Catholic school singles him out as like, you're never going to go to college. Dum-dums don't go to college. You're not going to go to college. You can't go on this college tour. And I was like, a little much.
Yeah, that guy's a real jerk. Yeah, over the top. He's got like one wisp of comb over hair, and other than that, he's bald. I don't know, I'm really sensitive about that lately, but it does not look good on this guy, and he's not a nice dude. And I mean, he's like a high school teacher. It's like, are you a hallmark of success?
Yeah, exactly. It's like talking down to this guy. And he didn't even say, I'm getting in. He's like, I would someday like to go to Notre Dame.
Yeah, he's going on the informational interview or whatever.
Right.
It's like, go and just see it.
And like, he didn't even call out anyone else or like question it, just Rudy. But I think some of that is a little bit like what you were talking about. Like, I mean, I don't think a teacher should have acted this way, but the notion that college is something that anyone could do was a lot less normal at this time.
Right. And what I was also thinking about was that, so we see over the course of this movie, Rudy is insanely driven, works really, really hard. But what was he doing up to the point that the camera rolls? It's like, because they say he's got bad grades, and they do kind of explain it with dyslexia. But it seems almost like the insane drive, the obsession comes on with what happens to the friend, Pete.
Right. We see from when he's a kid, his best friend is Pete. He goes to high school with Pete, does everything with Pete. They go to bars together. And then after they graduate high school, so yes, we see that he was on a football team and he was like a scrawny guy. But we do get the sense that he is at least a little bit driven here. Like the coaches say, we're going to miss you. And we see him like going hard in it. But yeah, we also get the sense that he kind of has not placed that needs to apply to school too. You're right. They repeatedly say he has bad grades, and we do get the dyslexia thing eventually. And there's also like, I don't know, implied ADHD, I would say too. He graduates, he gets a factory job. He still tells people someday I'm going to go to Notre Dame. Someday I'm going to play college football. And people get a little annoyed at this, his brother in particular. And I kind of get it. Because, like, I don't know, if you're 24 working in a factory and you're saying, man, someday that's going to be me, you know, I'm going to be out there on that football field, and you're not doing anything about it, that does come across as pathetic. I don't know. I kind of get it. I don't think people need to be quite so negative to him, but yeah. But the turning point, as you said, comes with what happens to Pete. So they work at the factory together, and there's a bad accident one day, and Pete dies in a fiery ball, gets launched out of where he's trying to get the whatever. I don't even know what kind of factory it is, like a steel mill or something.
Yeah, I think it's like I think they're doing the Bessemer process. That's one of the things I remember from my American studies is we learned about like American steel and how the Bessemer process revolutionized like blast furnaces or something. How the ways that you cast big pieces of steel. And yeah, like the first time they show the factory, they definitely make it like hellish. This is not the place you want to be. This is where dreams come to die. Have you ever seen October Sky?
Yeah, it's been a while, but I have seen it.
Yeah, it's kind of the same vibe with the mine in October Sky. It's like you go down there and you're away from the light. Yeah, and Pete dies here in the fireball.
This moment stuck with me because I hadn't really seen too many deaths on screen as a kid. And like the image of his inflamed body launching off the platform into like the depths below. You don't even see exactly what happens, but you see this flaming body descending from the platform. And even the nature of it, like this building steam, it's like kind of filled kind of intensely. For whatever reason, this moment stuck with me a lot.
And they kind of telegraph. It's a little bit of this long life I got ahead of me.
Yeah.
It's like you'd
sailing on the SS Live Forever.
At least the second time I watched it, yeah, Pete's not going to stick around.
Yeah, his death is definitely used as a narrative device, and it has a little bit of the cliche, like, he's the only one who believes in me. He's like, well, we'll figure it out together in our long future together, buddy. And then literally the next scene, he dies. But I want to call out the scene right before he dies, actually. I think it might not be like the one directly before it. It might be two before it or something, but they're on a lunch break, and Pete remembers Rudy's birthday and gives him this jacket for his birthday, first of all, it's a great jacket. It looks good on Sean Astin. Pete says, you were born to wear that jacket. And just like the way that he puffs up Rudy, I don't see what Rudy brings to this friendship sometimes. When I watch this, I'm like, why is he friends with Rudy? But then I also sort of get it, because Rudy's like the only dreamer in this town of non-dreamers. And Pete says, my dad always said, having dreams is what makes life tolerable. And I've kind of always liked this exchange, because I do kind of get that there are people who, even if they're born in kind of ordinary circumstances, are drawn to wanting more, you know?
And Rudy does have some things going for him. Like, he's always got friends around him. He's always got girls around him. It's like people see something in this guy. Yeah.
He's got like we talked about that with Mark Borchardt too, is like, he had I don't think she was an ex-wife, but like an girlfriend with whom he had a few kids. And then he had a girlfriend at the time and a group of friends and family always around him. So like, even though he comes across as annoying, he's got like a will of personality that's attractive, and like an energy about him. And yeah, that's another thing, is Rudy has this longtime girlfriend from when he's a kid, and she's played by Lily Taylor when they're adults. And she's actually still acting. She's been in some stuff this year. One that I'm probably going to see, that Fear Street series of slashers that do slashers in different settings. They have one out this year set at prom.
Is that the same Fear Street that's connected to R.L. Stine?
So I actually don't know, to believe it or not. I'm not sure. I'm guessing it is, but I don't know. But it got, whether it's the same brand or whether it's not the same brand, they did like 3 in a row in 1 year.
They were like year themed. They took place in different time periods. I remember that.
And this is the 4th one, and it's Fear Street Prom Night or something like that. So I'm hoping to catch up on the 3 that I missed, and then the one from this year. But yeah, Lily Taylor has had a productive career. So Pete dies, and now Rudy has, at his funeral, he's tearing up at his funeral, and he leaves the funeral and decides, like, enough delay, I'm going this minute to Notre Dame. Like, he leaves the funeral early to go to Notre Dame. The main contrast and an antagonist of sorts is his brother, played by Scott Benjaminson, who has not been in too many other things, and I don't think he's a good actor in this. I think he's the weakest performance here. He doesn't really have much dynamic energy as a villain.
He's mostly there. What it had me thinking of was the prodigal son, where it's the older son is the one who like lives by the rules and resents the younger brother for like not sticking to the plan. And it's like, oh, hey, Dad, when are you going to kill the fatted calf for me? your son who works at the factory and is like going to take over the factory one day, and put aside those silly dreams.
Yeah, I think particular what you said that is important is that he resents Rudy for dreaming because it kind of, in this case, in the prodigal son, it's not that there's a deficiency in the son who sticks around.
Right. It's not quite the same, because in the prodigal son, the younger one also has loose morals and is like behaving badly, which is not what Rudy does. Rudy works hard in pursuit of his dreams.
Right. He just wants more.
But it's got that element where the older brother feels like he should be, recognized and celebrated, because he too has carved out a life for himself, kind of according to the father's plan.
So that brother's name is Frank, but Frank is, we gather, like, part of the reason he kind of mocks Rudy for having these dreams is that it kind of gnaws at him that he's accepted this lot in life. And that kind of turns into bitterness aimed at Rudy, I think, is kind of a key point of it. But all the things you said too. He's the one who's around. And he's the one who he might get a promotion at the factory, etc. But yes, Rudy, he leaves his friend's funeral. He's like, I'm going to Notre Dame right now. He gets in line for the Greyhound bus. And this is where we get another one of my favorite scenes of the movie, where Ned Beatty comes, and he's like a good counterpoint, like a good flip side of the coin to the obnoxious priest teacher guy who doesn't let Rudy go on the university tour, because Ned Beatty's making some points here. He shares an anecdote of, I think it's his father or maybe his grandfather. I think his father, who during the Great Depression bought a farm in pursuit of a dream, and that ended up bankrupting him, ruining his life, and his dad ran off. And so pursuing dreams has negative consequences when they fail, and it can harm others. And I think it's important that the movie acknowledges that. Like, there's not just happy endings. Like, there are trade-offs, there are risks, there are downsides. And so I really like this scene, because the dad's got a point here, And so when he takes the bus ride to Notre Dame, it's like the break of dawn. He walks up to the security guard. I need to talk to someone about going to the school. The security guard's like, dude, what are you talking? There's like a whole applications process. He's like, well, the admissions office isn't open now. Please, it's got to be right now, Rudy says. He's like, well, I guess I can get you to talk to someone. And he gets him to talk to a priest. So this priest is played, it's not the first priest, the one who kind of craps all over Rudy. He's actually Father Kavanaugh. So did you know that this is a real person, Brian?
Is he playing himself, or just this person that is the character was a real guy?
The latter. So he's not playing himself, okay. But the guy that he's playing was a real and very famous person. He was the president of Notre Dame for a long time. And he was like a strong advocate in the Catholic faith. And again, I kind of grew up in a Catholic family, but like I was always taught that he was like a pretty heroic guy. I don't know too much about what he actually did, but he was at least famous as the president of Notre Dame. Here he's just kind of not the president of Notre Dame, he's just a priest hanging around giving wisdom to Rudy.
Right. So yeah, they don't make that super clear that this is like one for the fans.
You kind of have to know that it's Father Kavanaugh, yeah. Their first conversation is kind of funny because Father Kavanaugh thinks Rudy, instead of wanting to go to Notre Dame, wants to become a priest. And so they have one of those farce conversations where they're going back and forth, thinking they're talking about the same thing, but actually talking about something different. Although this one doesn't bother me. Sometimes those bother me. This one doesn't get dragged out too long. But the Father Kavanaugh character, he's played by an actor named Robert Prosky. And I feel like I've seen him in stuff before, and I definitely have. It's just, I don't know of anything where I would look at it and be like, oh, the thing that I know him from is blank. It honestly probably is Rudy, but he was in Dudley Do-Right, Brian. That was a funny one that made me laugh.
Really?
Yeah. He played Inspector Fenwick in that.
Okay. That's Nell's dad.
What Father Kavanaugh is able to offer him once they get their conversation sorted out is, all right, I can't like just put you into Notre Dame because you come here and say, I want to play Notre Dame, and nobody said it could be done, and nobody believed me except my friend who just died. You can't just say magic words and now you go to this very competitive university. But what I can do is I can get you into the sister school. I can get you one semester in the sister school, Holy Cross. And then if you do well there, you can apply for transfer to Notre Dame. So now what Rudy has to do to pursue his dream is, one, he has to do well in school when he's never done well before. Two, he's got to apply to transfer to Notre Dame and be accepted there. And then three, he has to walk on to the Notre Dame football team. So Notre Dame football does accept walk-ons. So what a walk-on is at a Division I school, usually the teams are, particularly at like a high-profile team, like a football team, particularly at Notre Dame, the athletes are all scholarship athletes recruited specifically to play the sport that they're there on the scholarship for. But a walk-on would be someone who does not have a scholarship and was not recruited to play that sport there. So he would have to go through an audition, a tryout, as it were. Audition, you don't usually call it that when it's a sport. A tryout.
That's all right. I called practice rehearsal the last time we talked football.
And so now much of it was shot in Notre Dame and also other towns in Indiana. But part of the appeal of this movie for me is the fact that it is shot on location in Notre Dame, in the Midwest, mostly during the fall. We see other seasons too. But there is really a beauty in this time and place, the fall in the Midwest. And it's really lovely cinematography. You really get to soak in the green of the turfs and the gold of the Notre Dame buildings, because that's a thing with Notre Dame is the gold. A lot of stuff's gold. There's the golden dome and the gold in the helmets and the leaves changing colors. And it's really one of the most beautiful campuses I've been on. What do you think about how this movie looks, Brian?
It does look really nice. And one part of me was like, well, there's lots of college campuses. Different people feel connections to different college campuses. I think there are things that many campuses have in common, but this is certainly a pretty one. What I really loved about the cinematography was once it gets cold, when it's like the end of the football season and there's snow and you can see everybody's cold breath and there's a lot of like slow motion, and that looks really good and it looks really authentic in this place at this time, and you just know that they followed through and did the thing, and it's like they're actually here shooting when the temperature is low. For sure.
Yeah. That's part of the appeal of the on-location shooting is you do get that. And you also get the college bars and campus buildings, and it's just very inviting to look at.
Yeah, it feels authentic. And I think that really serves the movie because it's an underdog story. It's an inspirational story. And he's pushing against these odds to achieve this large feat, but it's not impossible. Like, he really did it, and they're trying to present it in a way that gets that across. It's like, this is a thing that really happened. It wasn't impossible.
One of the things he does is there's this, again, a beautifully shot sequence where he breaks into the stadium. There's kind of a loose gate that he just kind of slips through to see the field. And we kind of get this long, wide shot of the stadium empty because it's just like the morning of a random day. It's not a game day or anything. And he just he still has on his suit from the funeral. And we see Sean Astin walking out of this tunnel into this just beautiful field and stadium. And you do kind of get a sense of the magic of it. I don't know. Here's where he meets a character named Fortune, who is on the maintenance staff and who gives Rudy a job because Rudy says, "Oh, I just want to be near the Notre Dame football field. Whatever it is, I'll be there. And I'll work for free." And Fortune's like, "You're crazy, man, but I'll hire you at minimum wage." And This actor is Charles Dutton. He's got a little bit of Samuel L. Jackson energy. He kind of has the same bone rattling way that he does line readings, which is good because he's got a great monologue near the end of the film. But he was also apparently in A Time to Kill. He was in a movie I really liked called Menace to Society. But this is the thing that I know him for. He's great here as Fortune, who's kind of like this mentor figure of sorts to Rudy.
I think he also got a line in that supercut that I was talking about where he says, "And not a day goes by."
That's from that monologue at the end, yeah. So now Rudy is in junior college, or I don't actually know if it's a community college or a junior college or what, but this he's at Holy Cross, and he is like fighting for his life to pass these classes. Like, everybody's sitting in class kind of slouching in their chairs, and he's like jotting down every single word that the teacher says, because he's like, I'm going to get it right this time. I'm going to pass my classes. But it seems like he's struggling in like what everybody else considers to be an easy basic religion class here. And at one point he like has a friendly interaction with an attractive young woman on campus. And it turns out she's like asking him, "Oh, are you looking for a place to stay? Well, call me here at this number." But someone sees it from afar, who is Jon Favreau, who's the teacher's aide in this one class that he's struggling. And it appears from a distance that she's just giving him his number, you know, like for a date or something like that. And Jon Favreau is like we learn his character's name is D-Bob. By the way, Jon Favreau, now best known as a director rather than an actor. He directed Iron Man. He directed the live action Jungle Book.
Directed Elf.
He's done a couple of others too. He might have done, was it The Mandalorian he co-created, I think? So he's like an executive at this point. Oh, he directed the Lion King live action that was really profitable. And apparently they're doing a Mandalorian spin-off movie for theaters called The Mandalorian and Grogu. And someone said, if you like rewind 10 years and say that this is the name of a Star Wars movie, it would sound like, what's the name? Something Shido, Glug Shido or something?
Glup Shido is the stand-in internet meme for Star Wars character names.
That sound like made up and ridiculous, right? And that people get excited about. It's like Glup Shido the movie, The Mandalorian and Grogu. Anyways, I like Jon Favreau here. I think he's a funny actor too.
Yeah, I like him. And even when he directs, he tends to make cameos in the movies. Like he's the doctor in Elf. He pops up. He had a role in the MCU.
And the arrangement that he makes, Jon Favreau, D-Bob makes with Rudy is, help me talk to girls and I'll tutor you and help you with your classes. And it turns out to be a mutually beneficial arrangement. There's a funny scene where it seems like an attractive woman is asking D-Bob out on a date, but she's really doing it on behalf of her dweeby looking friend, roommate or something like that. But it turns out to be a good pairing. He ends up in the end of the movie with Ilsa, I think her name is. So I always like that. I like that he got a girl at the end.
Yeah, it's good payoff.
And speaking of girlfriends, at various points, Rudy kind of goes back home. And when he goes back home, he sees that his girlfriend, who kind of did the sort of amorphous breakup when he left for Notre Dame, she's like, well, if you go, you're going to have to go alone. Which, like, okay, we've been together for 15 years. Are you actually breaking up with me? Or is it like I need a moment here? But then he comes back home and she's gotten together with one of Rudy's brothers. So that plot was always felt a little undercooked to me. It wasn't until I had seen this movie like 10 times that I was like even fully understood exactly
what had happened, because they don't talk about it. They just come into the house together at Christmas and Rudy immediately storms out.
Right, exactly.
Plus, yeah, you mentioned that like several actors play them growing up, and he's got so many dang brothers. It's like when you got so many brothers and then they're played by multiple actors, it's like I can't even care about these people. It's like there's too many faces in this house.
Yeah, the brother that she ends up with isn't Frank, the main antagonist one. He's another one who, like, it occurred to me this time, which it hadn't really occurred to me before, is like, I think we see him one other time, and he's like nice, so he's not a bad guy.
Yeah, he's more supportive of Rudy. When Rudy goes off, he's like, "I'm glad you're doing this, man."
But I guess the idea is like Rudy does have to give stuff up. There's trade-offs. He loses the woman who's been by his side. His true love is football.
Yeah, there are like a couple little subplots in here that don't amount to much. Like, so there's this other girl who's there who like runs the football boosters or something. It's like not cheerleaders. It's just like underlings that help the football team, like football acolytes. And so he kind of, when he's taken any in that he can get to be associated with the football team, he's helping these boosters. And like he says that he's a student, and then she gets mad when she finds out that he's not a student, which is like totally fair, because she says, you know, you can't just be some person creeping around the campus. But then, like, the only follow-up on that thread is that at one point, once he's on the team, he, like, says hi to her, and she has a little bit of a reaction.
Right, like a double take. Like, wait, it's that guy. Yeah, I feel like this needed just a tweak in the writing to have really clicked. So I think the idea, having watched it so many times now, I think the idea of this character is, like, she is another form of the Ned Beatty character. I mean, you're kind of right that like she's exactly right. Like the rules say you don't do this. You stay away from Notre Dame because you're not a Notre Dame student. And yeah, that's her job. She's supposed to sign up people who are students. So I don't hold it against her. But I think the idea is like she's the one who says things stay in their order and don't get undone. And Rudy needs to push against that. Which, okay. I mean, I get what the movie's going for. It's like people who are not giving Rudy the time of day and saying he needs to stay in his place, even though I think she's right. But another thing is that Rudy, he has the job with the stadium guy with the Charles Dutton character named Fortune, but he doesn't really have money. So he actually like breaks into the stadium each night and sleeps on a cot in the maintenance closet. And at one point, this is like in Fortune being a good guy, he like leaves a sheet out and he leaves a key out. So now he doesn't need to break in anymore, but he like won't talk about it. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I ain't never seen no key or sheet before. It's kind of how he talks, something like that.
Yeah.
So this kind of middle act of the film here is now Rudy basically trying to keep his grades up enough, and he's got 3 tries to apply. So he's got because Notre Dame doesn't take senior transfers. So
right. So it's like each semester he's trying to get in. I think it's the first 2 years, like freshman year, sophomore year, each semester he's trying.
And so it comes right down to the last one. He doesn't get in any of the first ones, and he gets discouraged each time. And he's like, a year wasted. And then it's Fortune who points out, he's like, you're a factory kid with dyslexia who had bad grades, and you just got a really good year of education at a college. Like that, how is that a year wasted? Which is a good point. And that kind of is going to tie into my thesis on how this is the antidote to American movie in some ways. So we can hold that thought there for a minute. But finally, it's the last one where he actually gets in. We see him open it on a bench, and we hear Rudy muttering to himself. I always thought this one scene, because he kind of mutters it to himself, and it's not like 100% clear what he's saying. And I always get a little, I used to get a little bit confused. Like, is he, and he starts crying, because he could be crying because he's sad because he didn't get in, but he did get in because he just kind of mutters it to himself. And the music is a little bit sweeping, but it's not like the most sweeping moment of the score. And I always thought this was weirdly shot, this one very specific moment.
Well, the last thing he says is, "Oh, thank God." And that part you can hear. But yeah, he's like saying, because I think he's reading the letter to himself.
Right. So he's like, your admission was accepted. But if you're not, it's not like he shouts it or jumps up for joy with it. But where we get the real payoff is the next scene.
Yeah.
Because he goes back to the factory and shows the letter to his dad, Ned Beatty, who gets really excited. He goes over the intercom, "My son's going to Notre Dame! Everyone, my son's going to Notre Dame!" And so he did it. He got into Notre Dame, which is like step 2 of his dream, I guess. But now he's got to get on the team. And so we hit what is probably the second best scene in the movie. I would accept the case that it's the best scene in the movie, which is the tryouts. So he's going to try out to be a walk-on. We see him with some of the other people who are trying to be walk-ons, and it does a great job. One of the coaches gives this narration of, okay, you should leave your dreams at the door if you really think you're going to be running out with the team. The only reason that we bring on these walk-ons is because we don't care whether or not you get injured. You're going to be running other teams' plays. You're going to be a punching bag for the A team while you're running the other team's plays. And the only reason that we want you here is because you'll work hard no matter what, and you can get hit and hurt, and it doesn't impact our chances at all.
Yeah, he talks a bit about the numbers. It's like we technically have, 130 people who are on the team, quote unquote, but it's like only 60 people ever actually play. So they got this whole like lower tier of the pyramid that doesn't go out on the field. So that I feel is pretty important for a layman like me who doesn't know that much about the sport.
Right. So there's like the starters, the people who actually play, and then one tier beneath that are people who dress. So that's what they say. Who's going to dress? That means you're going to be on the sideline and you potentially could play.
Oh, that's right. So there's like a third layer. There's people who don't even do that, who aren't even like on the bench. Right.
People who don't dress, people who don't even get to go out on the sideline each week. And it's something like a third of the roster doesn't even get to do that. And then this is the tier at the bottom of the pyramid. You'd technically be on the team, but you're a walk-on. You're there to be a punching bag, And so that's what Rudy is trying to be.
I was also wondering if they did like a reverse Tom Cruise for Sean Astin in this part. Because he's like half the size of these other guys. And I wonder if he's really that short or they were like putting him in a hole.
Oh, like trick photography to make him look even smaller?
They're doing Hobbit tricks. Yeah.
There might be a little bit to that. Yeah. He is a pretty small fella. He's like, I think 5'6". I looked it up. So I'm in the 5'6", 5'7" realm, and you think of me as a hobbit, Brian. So,
well, maybe a little bit. Yeah, it's all relative. But I was kind of thinking some of the people who are down on Rudy in this movie probably like the Randy Newman song "Short People." Short people got no reason to live.
But yeah, this tryout scene, first of all, it's got the best moment in the score. This is like the moment that gets most often quoted. I think there's another section that's kind of like a slightly slower, more anthemic take on this that's called Running Out the Tunnel or Out the Tunnel or something like that. But it's just kind of a remixed version of this. This is kind of like the most famous stretch of music from this. And it's very score forward. I use that term sometimes where like you hear the score. It's not just background. It's like prominent. And particularly this scene, like the dialogue, it's not important what they're saying because they're just doing like football tryout stuff. So you hear a little bit of muttering, but like it's the music that kind of tells the story.
Yeah, so it's a montage. It's a lot of these little exercises that they have to do. And like here they use a lot of the slow motion. There's like this drill that they do. It looks like a crab walk to me. It's like you go side to side and they're like hopping through these tires.
You get some good like football practice action, right? One thing that's here and then also in later football scenes is they do a great job of showing that you get clobbered in football. You get knocked around and like really beat up. Like there's a good job of showing like how badly Rudy's getting knocked around by these people. Like good sound design too. Like you hear the crunch of the pads hitting each other. Now that I've seen more movies, I know that that's like non-trivial work to like in the sound to make you actually feel that, It's pretty cool.
Yeah, the whole last third of the movie, he's got like little cuts on his nose and his cheeks, and he's getting bashed around.
Ice pack strapped on. Yeah. But at the end of the tryouts, you kind of hear the coaches muttering like, what about that Rudiger guy? He's giving it all he's got. He's going crazy mode out there. And the other coach is like, him? He's a scrawny little guy. I don't want him. It's up to you if you want him. And the coach is like, I tell you what, kid, if you slow down even a little bit, I'm going to throw you off this team so fast. And Rudy's like, wait, throw me off the team? To throw me off the team, I got to be on the team. That's right, kid. And then he cheers and jumps up and down and hugs the coach. And this is like one of the payoff moments. He got on the team, Brian. He did it. Against all odds.
He did it.
24-year-old factory worker got on the team as a walk-on through sheer drive. Stick-to-itiveness.
Right, by showing up.
Exactly. Showing up and giving it his all at every moment. Always trying to find what's the one extra step he can do to push harder, to push further.
And he literally says that a few times. He's like, am I doing all I can do?
Right. That's like his mantra. This last third of the movie always goes pretty quickly from my perspective. It's like we get some scenes of him getting knocked around on the football field. We meet a couple of football players. There's a couple of like captains on the team. So one is this big white guy who at first is really skeptical of Rudy and is like, yeah, you got to pump the brakes, dude. You're treating this like it's the Super Bowl, making us all look bad out there. But I think he's the same guy, but he kind of comes around on him at the end and is like one of his champions at the end. There's also this black athlete who they say his name. I forget what his name is, but he's like the team captain who gets a great scene at the end of the film. Meanwhile, Rudy keeps like telling his family, "Oh, I'm on the football team now, guys. It's crazy." But the skeptical brother Frank's like, "Yeah, if you're on the team, how come I don't see you out there on the sidelines, bub?" And Rudy gets this sad look in his eye, and then he goes to the coach's office. He's like, and basically explains, "My dad would love to see me. Nobody else believes in me. This would show them that you really can do it."
And what he's begging to do is sit on the bench.
Right. But we heard that spiel about the numbers. Like varsity athletes are not sitting on the bench.
And this first coach, his name is what? Ara Parsegian?
Yeah, Ara Parsegian. Yeah. He was a great Notre Dame coach. He won championships. But he quits in between Rudy's junior and senior year. Or maybe it's like right before Rudy's senior year. So he gets on the walk-on team his junior year. And then we understand that he also makes the team his senior year. But Ara says, I'll do it your senior year. I'll let you dress one game and be on the sideline next year. But he quits and they hire a new coach named Dan Devine. And one bit of non-factuality in this story is that Dan Devine actually was a big like pro Rudy guy. In fact, it was apparently his idea to like let Rudy dress for a game. So even though he's kind of portrayed as the villain here, he was in fact like a major positive force in this story. And apparently in interviews since, he said, I told them they could make me look like skeptical, but I didn't know they would make me the full-on villain. And that just bugs me, how bad that movie makes me look and how cynical that movie makes me look, when it was my idea to get Rudy to dress, which is kind of funny. So now the drama is he doesn't know whether Dan Devine is actually going to fulfill the promise that Ara made to let him dress for a game. So we see him each week looking at the list of people who made it. It's like in movies about where they make plays. They go to look to see who made callbacks, who got which role. It's like the sheet of paper hung on the wall that people rush to see each week. But each week, Rudy's name is not on it. Another important thing here is that Rudy's dad has never been to a game and promises he'll go see him if Rudy ever does dress. And similarly, Fortune, so the guy who works at the maintenance guy who gave Rudy a job and gave him a key, said if he ever dresses, he'll go see a game there. But then the last game comes, and Rudy, his name is not on the list. So he will not be dressing for any game. And he decides he's going to quit the team. He's so dispirited. He gave it his all. He got a promise. That promise was broken. He's just going to give up. This is where we get the great motivational speech, the great monologue of this film. So this is the Fortune character, the Charles Dutton character. I pretty much have it memorized. I won't do the whole thing for you. But Fortune says, "So you didn't dress. There are greater tragedies in this world." And Rudy says, "I just wanted to prove to everyone." And then Fortune interrupts him. "Prove what? You're 5 foot nothing, 100 nothing. You came out here and hung with the best football team on the planet. And you're going to walk out of here with a degree from the University of the Notre Dame. In this lifetime, you don't got to prove anything to anyone but yourself. And if you ain't done that by now, it ain't never going to happen." I really love this moment. It's an all-timer for me when he gives this little speech. And he shares with Rudy that even though he said he'd never seen a game, the truth is he had actually never seen a game from the stands. He used to be a player, but he got mad and quit the team because he thought they weren't playing him because he was black. And so he regrets giving up on his team, quitting the team, giving up on his dream before his college career was done, and says that Rudy will regret it too. So now Rudy has to decide, is he going to stick out the rest of the year? It's kind of confusing because it feels like it's already the end of the year, but I guess he's got like one more practice. But he goes and shows up to the practice after the practice has started, but he still goes out to the practice.
Right. It's like everything in this movie is like the last possible moment that it could happen is when it happens.
So this is like the last practice. He goes out there. And at this point, he's kind of won over like the team captains because he's got all the heart. And then one thing you hear the coaches say is, if the athletes had the heart that Rudy had, they'd be all American. You know, like he what he lacks in physical size and strength, he makes up for in attitude. And that's kind of won over most of the people. There's always people who are skeptical of him, but it wins people over. Indeed, he goes out to practice and the captains are cheering for him. The rest of the team is clapping for him. And Dan Devine, the coach, is like, "What's going on out there? Let's get back to practice." And then we get another one of my favorite scenes in the movie, which is after practice that day, one of the captains comes to the coach's office and he says, "Coach, I want Rudy to dress in my place." And the coach says, "You're a team captain and all-American. Act like it." And he says, "I believe I am," and puts his jersey on the coach's desk, basically saying, "Give Rudy my jersey, let Rudy dress for me." And then another player comes in and says, "Coach, I want Rudy to dress in my place too." Drops the jersey on the desk. And one by one, every player, every varsity athlete comes in and drops the jersey on the desk.
20,000 letters to Santa Claus.
It's the same idea. But I like that the team came together and rallied around this. I always found this very inspirational. It wasn't the coach's thing telling them to do it. They kind of self-organized, and it was like leading by example and like doing the right tough thing by the leadership, like the team captains here.
Right.
They don't say who actually gave up their chance to dress, but somebody didn't dress and Rudy dressed in his place, because Rudy does indeed get to dress. The big game, it's snowy the day of the game. Not snow on the ground, but you see flurries. It's cold. You get some of the breath that you're talking about here.
Yeah. One thing that bugs me with CGI is when they will use it to simulate cold breath. So when it's real, I got to call it out and commend it.
And one thing to know is that I think is really cool is they actually shot this during a real Notre Dame football game. And a lot of the footage is actually like shot by the filmmakers on a game day, like real Notre Dame athletes, real crowds and all that. So it's cool how they actually got it. Like they didn't just like bring in extras to do this. This is like a real football game that they're shooting it. And in general, like the authenticity of the football is pretty good. Like I said, you really feel the crunch of the players hitting each other and the ball flying through the air and all that stuff. It's pretty great. So then during the game, his dad shows up and there's like a dramatic reveal Frank, the skeptical brother, shows up, Brian. He's there. And that's like the emotional victory. The brother who was always the skeptic, who poo-pooed his dream all movie long, finally gave in and came there to support his brother and to acknowledge the value of Rudy's dream and the achievement in sticking with it. And this is a moment that gets me. Like, him actually showing up just feels like an emotional victory as much as anything.
Yeah, and Rudy even calls him ahead of it. He's like, look, I want you to be there.
So I think that phone call is actually with his dad.
Oh.
I could be wrong, but it might be, you know what? There might be a conversation with his brother too, but his brother does show up. And so they go out there and we see the football game. We see Rudy running through. People are going crazy. One thing I haven't said yet, this movie knows how to get me to cry. It's not a sad movie. There's a couple of sad moments, like when the friend dies. In general, it's an inspiring movie, but for some reason, like, the kind of like emotional catharsis that occurs when Rudy achieves something is tear-jerking to me. What kind of movies make you cry, Brian?
I think maybe the first time I watched this, there was a little bit of it. It's more like certain movies that I can point to. The bit at the end of The Walk from Zemeckis about the Twin Towers, the tightrope walker between the Twin Towers. Joseph Gordon-Levitt has a line about how he was given a pass after he did his stunt that he could come back anytime forever, and then it dissolves on the towers. That made me cry. There's a few others. Maybe we should do a top 5 at some point. Holes. I've been thinking about Holes lately, and how they kind of set up this place as somewhere that never rains, and then at the end they break the curse and it starts raining. That made me cry. There's, I don't know, a few moments. Sounds like this is a reliable one for you.
Yeah, I think that would be an interesting top 5 movies that make us cry. So there are, to my memory, 3 movies that I have seen at least 3 times and have made me cry every time that I've watched it. And those 3 movies are Rudy, Toy Story 3, and It's a Wonderful Life. There may or may not be another one in the mix there. Certainly movies have made me choke up and cry before, plenty of times, but those are the ones that get me for whatever reason. I don't know. But yeah, this is up there. And I don't know, this time in particular, I was getting emotional. It was 10 minutes in and I was getting emotional in this one. At every moment of persistence paying off, I got emotional.
The Ones Who Dream in La La Land. That made me cry a couple times.
Oh yeah, Audition. That's right. Not Tryout, Audition in La La Land. Anyways, we're at the football game. He's on the sideline. His dad, his brother are there. Fortune's there. And it's a blowout.
Okay, yes. So I did not understand where the score stood at this point in the game. I was confused. Jon Favreau comes from wherever he's been with Ilsa. He shows up in a limo smoking a cigar. So what is his deal? Has he struck it rich somewhere?
Well, he's going to law school, and I think it's part of I don't know if it's a joke almost, but D-Bob is kind of rich. He's a privileged boy. He's always dressed in fancy sweaters throughout it. So I think we're supposed to take him as coded as the opposite kind of student than what Rudy is. He's rich. He's traditionally academic, white collar, family, wealthy upbringing, but he still forges a connection with Rudy. So I think that's what it's going for there.
Got it. So yeah, I wasn't sure where the team stood at the end of this game. The point is that by this point in the game, and I think I was right in assuming this, is that whatever happens in the final play of this game is not going to matter.
And the coach, Dan Devine, is saying, get the seniors in there for the last play. It's the grand farewell, It's a retirement, not tour, but give them a chance to be out on the field one time, particularly if they're not starters, And an assistant coach was oh, including Rudy? And Dan Devine's no way, come on. He didn't even want to dress him. And the captain's like, come on, you gotta let him do one play. And so one of the captains, one of the players, and I think it's the guy who gave him gruff earlier, but it's certainly the guy who clapped for him when he came back out at practice, starts chanting, Rudy, Rudy, Rudy. And other people start chanting it too. And it spreads to the crowds. And we see Ned Beatty and whoever plays the mom being like, they're saying his name. And it's corny, but it's pretty great because it's like, you know, all he dreamed of. Now the whole stadium is cheering his name. And the explanation we're given for why people would know about it, it's said very quickly. Because I always wondered, like, why would anybody cheer Rudy? Like, why would the normal student know or care who Rudy is?
Yeah, I was wondering, like, how many pages did the guy in the commentator booth have to flip through to, like, understand who Rudy is?
Right. The explanation we're given is that it was a story in the student newspaper, like a feature puff piece on the senior walk-on who's finally going to get a chance to dress. And so, like, students latched onto it, and they wanted Rudy to appear in a game. So they started chanting, Rudy, Rudy. And D-Bob does too. But the problem is it's the very end of the game. They're just going to run out the clock, so Rudy's not going to get a chance. So Roland, he's the team captain, the guy who came in, is like, I want Rudy to dress in my place. Does, like, a fake handoff, halfback pass, long pass, even though they're up. It's kind of like, it's not good sportsmanship if you have the game in hand to, like, run up the score. So in some ways, it's almost, like, rude that they're doing it. But it's in the name of getting Rudy in the game. And so they score the touchdown. And so for the kickoff play, Rudy can come in. And so he runs into the field.
So is Notre Dame ahead?
Yes. It's a blowout against Georgia Tech.
Blowout against Georgia, got it. They, like, drive it ahead one more little bit. And then the captain says, now we're solid. It's like we got 5 seconds left on the clock.
Right, and that's when they throw the long touchdown pass. But no, Notre Dame is up big, so this is running up the score. And now, because he's like a defense and special teams player, Rudy can run out to be on the kickoff. So he gets to be in a play, not just on the sideline, but actually in a play. And this is where the score is really soaring. You're really feeling it in the music. That's what's pulling you along. I'm definitely welling up as this has happened. This is the moment. It's all led to this. He's out on the field. His dream is fulfilled. After the kickoff, there's one play left where they're going to try to throw a long pass. And Rudy stays out for one last play. The quarterback drops back, and Rudy is the one who runs back and gets the sack, tackles the quarterback before he can throw it. Now everybody's going wild. I'm definitely emotional at this point. And it's just kind of this long, wordless, like 2-minute finale of everybody cheering. And they lift him up, carry him off. And the score is doing this really magical thing where it's like alternating between this huge soaring brass and like this kind of mellow, introspective pause before the dramatic surge. There's like this 3-second shot here at the end. It's one of my favorite shots in the movie, and honestly, one of my favorite shots in any movie, where his teammates have lifted him up on their shoulders. So he's above everyone. Remember, he's the smallest guy, but for the first time, he's above everyone. And the camera is kind of placed below. So it's like a low angle shot shooting up. And you see the players kind of like blur together because you just see their helmets. And you see Rudy with his finger in the air, and you can just see sky behind him. So it's almost like a heavenly shot. That's one thing that's kind of occurred to me in some of my recent ones, is there's like a lot of imagery of spiritual actualization in this, of like divine running through the tunnel. Like, don't they say the light at the end of the tunnel? That's like a metaphor for dying and going to heaven. I think there's intentionally some of like tying this achievement to like achieving an immortality. And it's really beautifully shot and scored. And then we get this little text blurb at the end that says, since 1975, no other player has been carried off the field at a Notre Dame game. So what are you thinking here at the end, Brian? What's your reaction as this is going on?
Okay. So I was thinking this time of the one where they recreate Raiders of the Lost Ark, the adaptation, where in that episode when we talked about it on the podcast, you said, so they did it. They got to meet Steven Spielberg, but that's it? They met Steven Spielberg? This guy, okay, so he's been working for, 4 years, kind of his whole life, but really put the fuel on these last 4 years. And so he gets onto the team, then he gets onto the field, but not really because he's on the bench. And then he is on the field, and it's for 5 seconds. And I guess he knocked a guy over, which is what he was there to do. But then it's done.
Yes.
that was the whole thing.
That's true. That's very true. He did it, and now what do? You did it. You aim for a goal and you achieved it, and it's done. So what comes next, So maybe this is where we can talk about why I feel like this is an antidote to American movie. So I kind of agree, and I also kind of disagree, because there's a phrase that's used about the economy, which is a rising tide lifts all ships, I think it is. And so that's obviously not where this applies to, because that's about essentially like when the economy is good, everything is good, Like a good economy helps everything else in the country work.
But it kind of works here because it's like you see all the people who have come to believe in possibility.
Exactly. In achieving this, he made the impossible seem more possible. His sheer persistence, his sheer belief in himself made any dream doable if you are willing to work hard enough for it. And not just that, but by driving to make yourself better, you make the people around you better. That's something that didn't click for me in American movie. Because when he's making movies, he's not doing it. Like the side effect isn't making everyone around him better. I mean, in some ways he kind of does, because he gets his buddy involved in making a movie, and everybody's working together to make something, and that's cool, and that's no small thing. But that feels more pointless to me than this does here. This to me is, even if you're just grinding toward a goal that seems pointless, and the payoff is just doing it, there is inherent value in doing that, because it makes other things possible. And it inspires other people, and it lifts up other people around you. Because another thing is, all right, now he went to college, and then it said a bunch of his younger siblings went to college, because, hey, once your brother does something, it's a lot easier for you to do that thing too. If nobody had done it before it, your brother becomes the first to do it. Well, now it's easier for you to do it,
Oh, I get to say a thing that I feel like in the early episodes of the podcast, I would mention some philosophical concept, and then it would be a phrase that I would use for a while. I don't think I've said this one yet. Are you familiar with Columbus's egg?
No.
Okay, so Columbus's egg is the idea. It's kind of an anecdote. I don't know if it has any truth to it, but that Columbus was at a dinner party. This probably never happened. It's like George Washington's cherry tree. But that people were razzing him that anybody could have found America. Eventually, somebody would have found America. Guess the natives had found it, 40,000 years ago or whatever. But a European would have eventually crossed the ocean. Somebody would have crossed the ocean and found the New World over there and connected the continents. But Columbus says he takes a hard-boiled egg off the table, and he says, make this egg stand on one end. And he's passing it around to people at the table, and everybody's trying to stand the egg up, and it just tips over because it's egg-shaped. It's round. It falls. And then Columbus takes the egg, and he presses it down on the table so it kind of smushes one end of the egg, and then the egg can stand up. And it's a hard-boiled egg. It's not a raw egg, so it doesn't ooze. Anyway, the response from the hagglers, the hecklers, is, well, anybody could have done that. And Columbus says anybody could have done it, but somebody had to do it first. It's like if somebody had to know how to do it, somebody had to chance into figuring it out. And then after that, it's, hindsight is 2020. Anybody can see the path now.
For sure. I think there's something to that because particularly for those kinds of feats. Okay, another example is like Neil Armstrong landing on the moon. Like, he's the first person to walk on the moon, but it's not like he built the rocket ship and he designed the rocket ship and he came up with it. Like, there was societal forces pushing people to the moon, and he happened to be the one to step onto the moon. He was the first to do it, but to your point, I mean, it's not exactly the same thing, but there was going to be a first, and someone had to be the first. And yeah, I guess in the case of Columbus, he's the one who led the trip to go out there and do it,
Yeah, it's the small step that's also a giant leap. So Neil Armstrong, probably a more concise example. But the first sentence on the Wikipedia article, the egg of Columbus is a 16th century anecdote about hindsight. So there you go.
Gotcha. That's a good one. When my kids were born, I read a couple of books about childhood development. And one term that gets used sometimes is the zone of proximal development. So what the zone of proximal development is, I like to think about this concept both in learning, but like in things in general. The zone of proximal development is things that you try to do, that you want to do, that are just a little bit beyond your capabilities, a little bit beyond your comfort zone. And that's like where real achievement happens. It's like, is the things that are just a little bit, pushing just a little bit beyond what your current limitation is where real achievement, real growth lies. And that's like, the idea is that that's how the brain develops, is a series of small steps of going just a little bit beyond what you already know, what you're already comfortable doing. That's how you get the next step. Think about, you crawl and then you hold yourself up. Well, the first time you hold yourself up, that's a little bit harder than crawling. But once you've kind of done it, now you can hold yourself up. And then, okay, now you can glide holding yourself up. Okay, well, then you can take a couple of steps. Okay, well, then you can walk across the room. And like, you can't go from crawling straight to walking across the room. But if you push yourself each one of those steps of the ways, you can go from crawling to walking across the room. You have to achieve each one of those things in your zone of proximal development. So I kind of see that as related too.
Yeah. Watching this movie this week, I thought 20 times about something you said during the American movie episode, which was, you said something about the point that the phase shift happens between a solid and liquid, like when an ice cube melts. And you said that the changes between 21 and 22 and 23 degrees Fahrenheit, I don't know, European audience, you're going to have to convert, but that they're imperceptible changes, but those steps still matter. It's like, finally, the only change that's perceivable is from, 31 to 32. But when the freezing point is crossed, that's when it's visible. But you couldn't have gotten there if you hadn't had those other increments.
For sure. Yeah. And like, every degree is a challenge in and of its own. Like, getting enrolled at Holy Cross isn't like something that you make a movie about, but that step was just as important and just as challenging as him running out onto the field in the very last play of the game, Right.
And what I also like is that most of the people, we have the two who are kind of cartoonishly anti-Rudy, but most people, they encounter this guy and like the first moment of reaction is maybe scoffing, but very quickly won over. They're like, right, this is kind of cool.
He's just a guy who's going all out. He's leaving it all on the table. He's pushing hard. He's all in all the time. And there's something admirable and infectious about that.
And have you ever watched the clip where Mr. Rogers got like a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Daytime Emmys when he was old?
Is this the one where he wanted everybody to have a moment of silence?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen that before.
Okay, and so this is one that always makes me cry. To get back to that, But he calls for a minute of silence, and he says, "All of us have special ones who have loved us into being. Would you take 10 seconds with me to think of the people who have helped you become who you are? Those who have cared about you and wanted what was best for you in life. 10 seconds of silence. I'll watch the time." And then everybody in the crowd is crying. He pulls out like a little pocket watch.
It's great.
But it's like these people along the way were all crucial. And they all kind of feel it then when Rudy achieves what he achieves.
Right. And that's another thing about Rudy is other people gave him chances. It was his sheer will, but it was also because other people gave him chances. The priest let him in the building and got him his first semester. Fortune gave him a job and a place to sleep. The coach let him join the team even though he was smaller than the other walk-on tryout athletes, etc. So I think that's a big important part of it too. So one thing, I did write a review of this a while ago on thegoodsreviews.com, but one thing I noted there that I'd like to say here is that I've always had like a sort of religious view of this film, which is a little silly to say, but it's kind of true. So like, I mean, I don't mean that in the sense of like, it's about religious things, although it is. It's got like a lot of priests. It's at a Catholic university, etc. Like they talk about God and prayer and stuff, but mainly that like this was sort of like a text that gave me a model for how to live my life. And I kind of always felt that like this, I still do kind of feel that like this is a movie that has a purpose more important than just entertaining, like actually does inspire me in a very real way. So, I mean, it's kind of corny, undeniably. I showed it to my friend Anthony in college, my roommate, also known as Seabag. I'm not sure if I've ever talked about Seabag on the pod, my college roommate. Great dude. Anyways, I made him watch it one time, and he said, if that movie doesn't inspire you, nothing will inspire you. And I still think about that. So, yeah, I actually, that Rudy still does work for me. I kind of get, I've known some people who really don't like Rudy. They're like, it's just so maudlin, so corny, so manipulative. Like you said at the beginning, it's like engineered so that everything's at the last minute. Every possible obstacle comes in his way, right up to the point until it prevents him from actually achieving his dream. So it's corny in that regard. I don't care. I still love it. I still think it works. I think it's absolutely outstanding. And I think, I don't know, it's like so fully committed to doing what it does, like being singularly about Rudy achieving his dream, that it works. It's interesting. Most sports movies end with, will they win the big game? But here, like, it doesn't, I mean, they did happen to win the game, but it's like not about, are they going to win the game against Georgia Tech and go to the playoffs? It's like, it's just about Rudy achieving his goal. So, but that's Rudy, Brian.
That's Rudy.
A couple of anecdotes real quick. One is, this was one of the first DVDs we got. You've talked about how like some of the first DVDs you got, you went through all the special features. That's something that we did. It didn't really have that many special features. I think it had the trailer. It might have had one other thing. But one thing it had that we discovered and we found fascinating is it had different language audio tracks. And just for like a goof, we watched Rudy in Spanish one time. And the thing that actually made us laugh really hard is like when people are chanting Rudy, it uses the original audio. It doesn't dub over it, except for like one or two times. It's when it's like zoomed in on someone saying Rudy, it'll have like dubbed over in Spanish saying Rudy, Rudy. It's like in contrast to everybody else chanting it. And that made us laugh really hard.
I was thinking there's a recording of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer by the Chipmunks where they call him Rudy. Okay, Rudy. I was thinking of that as well.
It's funny. You can buy the Rudy jacket now, by the way. Of course, they turned it into an actual jacket you could buy. I think it was initially designed for the movie, but now you can get it at the Notre Dame bookstore for like, it was $95 like 10 years ago, so it's probably twice that much now.
Do you want this jacket, Dan? Give you this jacket?
Oh, man.
Is this jacket Hall of Fame?
This was like the original I want that jacket until like they made it into like a product you spend $100 on. And then I was like, well, now it's corny. Now it's like a thing that anyone can just go to the bookstore. Like, oh, that's cool. I'll get the Rudy jacket. So it doesn't feel special anymore to me. But this was maybe the original I want that jacket. Because it is a good jacket. I would wear it. I'm not going to lie. If I got it, I would wear it. I do want that jacket.
Sean Astin comes to AwesomeCon, the DC Comic Con, pretty frequently. I don't know if he lives somewhere around here, but sometimes the other hobbits come, but Sean Astin is there like every other year.
You know, I've heard that Sean Astin is like a super duper nice guy, like a big family guy and like friendly, cheerful person to work with. I saw him in a movie this year. He was in a movie with Ke Huy Quan called Love Hurts.
So that's two of the Goonies then.
Exactly. That was, I think, the reason they cast him. He mostly appears in like low budget movies these days, but I was glad to see him. He had like a Southern accent in that. He was playing like a real estate agent or something like that, talking in a Southern accent.
He plays a really silly role in 51st Date.
Okay.
You ever seen that one? He's like the brother of Drew Barrymore.
Okay.
Her brother.
So I will say, I don't know if I could call it one of the best movie performances ever, but Sean Astin as Rudy is one of my favorite movie performances. I think he just so thoroughly encapsulates the Rudy energy. And like, you just buy him in his dream of it. You buy him in being a slightly annoying version of it. You buy him in his glory in achieving his goals and his grind mindset.
Yeah. I think the really famous Sean Astin performances share a common thread where it's like the Goonies never say die thing. It's like, it's our time down here. Or Sam in Lord of the Rings has a bunch of moments like this where it's like he's the one pushing things along. He's the real, like the undersung hero. That the reason things happen is because it's all about Sam. He's carrying the franchise.
Right. But it is, to me, like I said, quintessential movie performance. And anytime Astin comes up, I always say, oh, it's Rudy. Even when I wrote about Love Hurts, I called him Rudy rather than fellow Goonie Sean Astin. But I think I'm ready to rate. What about you, Brian?
I'm ready.
So Is It Good is our signature section where we each give the movie a rating on our 8-point goodness scale, ranging from very not good, which is a 1 out of 8, to our masterpiece rating toward a good, which is an 8 out of 8. Brian, is Rudy from 1993 good?
So I like this one a lot. I waffled a little bit on what rating I was going to give it. I'm pretty sure I gave Good Will Hunting a 7. I don't know if it really deserved that. Rudy is better than that. So I think this gets a pretty solid 7 from me. It's really well done. I think it achieves what it sets out to do, telling this inspirational story, and all the elements are designed to make it inspirational. The really strong presence of the score, just the way that it's shot, but so much of it is the Rudy performance that you buy how driven that he is and how this is like part of his soul, that he needs to be so tenacious and like lock his teeth onto this like a pit bull and not release. He's just, this is the thing, and this has to be the thing, and this is his destiny, basically. As implausible as that seems, that's what he's pushing for, and because he never lets go, he ultimately gets there. And I like also that in this film, I think the message is you're only going to get as far as you push yourself, but that other people, everybody kind of makes a life for themselves, and there's worth in different destinies. Like, I think the father is not looked down upon. the brother who seems to have regrets, like, he's not a bad person, and he gets to share in the celebration at the end. So it's like it takes a village, but you also need to always have that fire, is what Rudy is about to me. So exceptionally good.
So for me, Rudy is a masterpiece. It's an 8 out of 8 toward a good. It's probably one of my more unconventional masterpiece ratings. I frankly wish I had more. I don't know. Sometimes I look at the movies I've given 5 stars on Letterboxd, and like 85% of them are just like canonical works, which tells me that it's a combination of like, okay, I'm actually seeing these great movies as great, sure, but also like maybe I'm being talked into thinking they're great. And like, I don't know, I kind of wish there were more movies in my life that I discover and call to me so profoundly, even against consensus, that I feel compelled to give them a toward a good masterpiece rating. Because I do think Rudy is a masterpiece. I think what you said, that it achieves its goals, is what's important about it. Like, it's not that like every plot thread and character is like the richest and most believable version of itself, but that like every single piece is engineered to sweep you into Rudy's journey and to feel actualized the way that Rudy is at the end of the film. Like, building to that payoff. This is truly one of my favorite endings in any movie. Even to this day, like I said, it was my first favorite movie. I just find it's such a profound payoff on the journey. And it really, you're right, it does make you think about like, what's the point? Why does it matter? But it also doesn't make you think that. Like, it convinces you that dreams are what make life tolerable, to quote the best friend Pete who died. Just a tremendously moving film, and one I found increasingly like spiritual and charged with the feeling of like, why do we even do what we do, and like, what's the purpose of it all, in just really profound ways. The score is one of my all-time favorites. Aston is one of my all-time favorites here. Would I consider it a masterpiece if it wasn't a movie that I loved profoundly at age 10? I don't know. But that is the life that I live, and that is how I feel about Rudy, that it is an unassailable masterpiece for me. It's probably number 5 on my top 100. I think I had it at number 5. I moved a Goofy movie into slot number 4, and I would probably bump this ahead of Shawshank Redemption at this point to be number 5. So with my top 5, pretty locked in these days of That Thing You Do, Dazed and Confused, Toy Story 3, a Goofy movie, and Rudy. So, yeah, I mean, an all-timer for me. A great movie for a birthday film, because both it was like an important early film for me, but also like it defines a lot about what I see about the world, and I feel is like on a list. If you were to make movies about like get to know me in 10 movies, was like an exercise that went around Letterboxd at one point. Like, people would make lists, 10 movies to get to know me, which aren't necessarily your 10 favorites. For me, this is both one of my 10 favorites and one of 10 movies to get to know me. Like, this is like a very important Dan text about like what I view as good and aspirational and valuable. And yeah, all the good stuff that I've kind of talked about like what works from the production aspect of it too. Score, the look, all that. So great one for me. And that's Rudy, Brian.
Nice. I'm glad we were able to cover it. The 10 movies to get to know me, I talked about a little while ago when we watched The Crowd. I did kind of an exercise like that informed a lot of my day one picks for the podcast, of which by this point we've covered like 7 of them. There's still a few got to get to, but I've tried to space them out, not do them all at once.
Listeners, come find us on the goodsfilmpodcast.com. Join our Discord. Tell us what movies make you cry, what movies inspire you, and what 10 movies would we use to get to know you? Because we'd like to know you, listeners. We've met a handful of people who have found our Discord, and have a good number of people who chat with us in there. So we'd love to hear from you as well. Brian, what are we going to be discussing next week?
So, Dan, I gave a little teaser earlier in the episode, but for like the last, I don't know, year and a half, I've been trying to come up with another combo that would work for an old tradition here on the podcast that I called Violent Ends, which is where we would take two movies where the plot is very similar. Basically, they start out at the same point and follow some of the same narrative developments, but then along the way they diverge and they wind up at very different endings, one of which is like warm and wholesome, and the other is dark and usually violent. And so I've come across a couple other pairs like that lately. And actually the one I want to assign is the double feature of The Man Who Would Be King from 1975 and the DreamWorks animated movie Road to El Dorado, which was from like 2000 or 2001.
Oh, cool. Okay. That'll be fun. I don't think I've seen either of those. I've seen parts of The Road to El Dorado, but I don't think I've ever seen the whole thing. So this is a fun one, Brian. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And I just watched one of them, so I'll probably watch it again, but I'm going to be wrapping my production this coming week, so I've still got some more shooting ahead, so thought I would do something that would be a little bit potentially easy.
Okay. Well, thank you, Brian. Thank you, listeners. Thanks for celebrating my birthday with me and discussing Rudy, and we will see you next week on The Goods, a film podcast.
Bye, everybody. Happy birthday, Dan.
Thanks, Brian.